At the start of March, both J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs predicted gold would soon hit $3,000 per ounce. By the middle of March, it had happened. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. Call 888-753-1647. Good evening. I'm still reporting on Russia making a big move on Ukraine. With the world focused on the tariff war going on between the U.S. and China, Russia is preparing to mount a massive offensive against the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, from the north and the east of the capital.
As Ukraine faces increased aggression from Moscow, Ukrainian President Zelensky saying his military captured 2 Chinese nationals who were fighting alongside the Russians. Intel reports suggest there are likely many more. Beijing said this morning it's working to verify Zelensky's claim and advises its citizens to stay away from the conflict. But I mean, look, China is supporting Russia on this. There's no doubt about that. What are your thoughts on this?
You know, I would say that that's an interesting development. It's episodic, but go ahead and try to find a job in China if you're Chinese right now. There are soldiers out of work in China, and they're going to be attracted to a place in the world where they can go make money with their craft. It's not that you're looking at legions and legions of Chinese that are going to be suddenly joining the battle in the Ukraine. I wouldn't make a whole lot of that. Where I'd really put my attention on Ukraine is the amount of logistics movements on the Donbass. We're looking at 450 vehicles, a column that we have not seen since February of 2022, forming up logistically along the line of contact. We're looking at a Russian army that's rolling into Sumy, just north of Kiev. We're seeing the early start of an offensive. And if I was advising President Zelensky right now, I would say, look, you need to turn your attention to President Trump's leadership about getting done with the war instead of signing contracts all over the place in Europe and listening to those who think that there is a military solution against the Russians. There isn't. And so we can focus on some Chinese, or we can look at hundreds of thousands of soldiers that are now getting ready for a major offensive to finish off the war.
Yeah, no, you make a good point, General. And we've been seeing tensions escalate with China between the back and forth tariffs as well. And China says regarding the tariffs, Steve, that they're not backing down. Trump, well, he's not backing down either. What do you think ultimately plays out here and regarding our relationship with China moving forward?
Well, our relationship with China is heading through, I think, what we call diplomatically a readjustment. I think it's an historic reality check. I think all the bets of the past have been called and they've been found wanting. And so we've got this really big reordering of things. China says they want to fight to the end. They've had a lot of belligerent rhetoric. They've said that fentanyl is our problem. They've talked about all these things they're prepared to do economically. But ultimately, as Trump would say famously, they don't have all the cards. And so for once, we have a president who recognizes we have leverage. He's using it. And there's been some fantastic reactions to it in terms of getting Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and others to invest in LNG from Alaska. We've reduced the trade deficit. So we've got all kinds of things that are going to make things better for America, better for our allies, and make us less dependent on China if we hold this course. And if China doesn't want to negotiate, so be it. It's their economy that's going down.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, General, you know, in recent years, especially during the Trump years, we've seen a lot of headway in terms of peace agreements in Eastern Europe. You see the Baltics. You've seen, obviously, an expansion of NATO. If China is directly involved in sending troops to Russia, that could mean another dimension to this. I mean, are we seeing basically a new axis of evil rising up in front of us?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think they're sending troops to Russia. Again, I think it's mercenaries, it's episodic, it's a small handful. But look, China does not have the resources right now to get into a major war. In fact, the situation in China is very dire internally. Xi Jinping has just put 1,300 officers under investigation that he thought were loyal to him. He has rolled up 200 flag officers in the last 11 days. What the worry would be is, does China do the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, do some sort of false flag against Taiwan to at the demise of the Chinese Communist Party? There's a cauldron in China, but it's a Chinese problem. There's no axis. In fact, I would say President Trump's work is pulling the Russians more and more out of the Chinese orbit as they go into a tailspin. These are very interesting days in Beijing. They're historic.
Yeah, and I know, General, we've asked you a lot about these Chinese troops that are kind of embedded with Russian forces as well. So, Steve, I just want to get your take. Should we be worried at all? I know the General says, we really shouldn't. These are a few people. This isn't the entire Chinese army going to support Russia here.
Well, I just don't want to go too far with a couple of anecdotal pieces.
Yeah.
The guys that were captured certainly were speaking Chinese. They did not look like the best and brightest that were on offer, but I don't know a lot of the details that are there. But what is undeniable is that China has enabled the Russian war machine. China has enabled Russia, Iran, and others to avoid sanctions. And so I think it's totally fair to go to Beijing and say, not only have you cheated the world and the American people on the economic system,
right.
The World Trade Organization has failed world trade. You've lied about COVID and other things. The World Health Organization has failed the world on health, and you did it. And go to them and say, you're also the most destabilizing force and bad neighbor. Of course, we don't want you to be our heaviest part of the supply chain to run our way of life. So that's why we're going in a different direction. We don't have any animus to the Chinese people, but your government has forced us all to go in this different direction. So be it.
Good point.
Well said.
I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day.